Neil, something I've always really appreciated about your style of teaching and your approach to grappling in general is that you have a very unique lens that you see things through because of your vast experience in multiple different styles. I mentioned in your introduction that you're experienced in jiu-jitsu, catch wrestling, judo, sambo. You've worked with obviously you're under Gokor Chavichin in the highest stand system as a black belt. How do you feel that your vast experience in different forms of grappling has given you a unique perspective when approaching how to teach, say, the everyday hobbyist type of student?
Well, I think sometimes people get trapped in their art. Like there's certain styles or arts, they don't really go outside of that. They think that their art is the answer to all, everything. And there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. And when you're working with different athletes, for example, you gotta, I'm a big guy, but I had a lot of influences from smaller guys. And I actually cut down to 205 to move faster, like smaller guys. So I had to learn that small guy style because I might have to teach small athletes. I had to learn heavyweight style because I'm heavyweight and I work with heavyweight athletes and everyone in between. And sometimes when you especially getting over to MMA, I feel that mat wrestling, mat scrambling is a big deal, very big deal. And there's usually a wrestling approach to a scramble, and then there'll be more of a like jiu-jitsu approach to a scramble. And not that one is better than the other. It's just that you have to look at the athlete. You have to look at the competition or maybe the tactics or the strategy of the fight and choose what you think is going to be the most basic and the one thing you can truly count on, so you don't get your athlete in a bad position, because there ain't nothing worse than if you're caught teaching an athlete to do something and then they go to do it and it gets them in a position of failure where they lose the fight. That stuff should haunt coaches. So that being said, I wanted to learn everything. Because one of the best things that ever helped me for hand fighting, it wasn't jiu-jitsu, it was Greco. Training with Greco guys, I was like, man, these guys hand fighting are, granted, I was going with good Greco guys. Their hand fighting was ridiculous, and their pummeling was ridiculous. And I picked up a lot, and I was able to transfer a lot of that to the mat. Same with freestyle or folk style wrestling. Sometimes for me, it's like, well, if I had to look at this on a statistical basis, I'd rather use that wrestling scramble because it's going to get me, the first one up is the first one to punch, So a lot of times that you look at these scrambling and you go to a lower weight class, like say bantamweight, and fighting scrambling is fast. You don't see a lot of stagnant time on the ground unless one athlete chooses it. It's either, the guy chooses hey, I got a good guard game. I'm going to do this, try to hit him with this and then get this reversal, whatever. And if he's not like that and he doesn't have his balls wired tight for that, then he's going to be looking to scramble. If you watch even it's any of those smaller weight classes. And then when you get into some of the other weight classes, things are a little different. With heavyweights, things are a lot different. And, every heavyweight can hit hard. It doesn't matter if he's a striker or not. He's just a big man. That's a big fist. It's a lot of weight. And we're all just human. So you got to look at heavyweights a little more. And you got to understand, this one scramble at a 55 weight, it's pretty easy to make happen. That same scramble maybe at a 255-pound weight, with that kind of weight on top of you, it might need modifications. It might it might change. It's not going to be exactly the same because nothing is the same. Body mechanics. And the other thing about coaching is, the big thing that helped me was, and I got this from Highest Stand right away, is play to your body type. Master your body type first, and then master everything else. And boy, did I take that and run with it. That for me just started my motor. It pointed me in the right directions. And it was a lot of stuff I had no interest, because when I first started this, it was a passion. Never thought I'd be doing it for a living. But it was a passion. I wanted to get good. But the stuff that I had to learn from my body type was not what I wanted to do at all. And but I had faith in them, and I trusted them. And like I said, it started my motor. And then all of a sudden, things started coming together. And a lot of times when I go do these seminars, I do privates with people, I can see in their mind that they're stumped. They don't know where to go. What do I focus on first? And I always bring it back to that. I always say, look at what you have. Yeah, you're not the biggest, strongest athlete, but you're long. Like if I had your kind of length at that weight class, I would do this. Or if you're flexible, the 10th planet system, you can take a lot from that because, they have a giant base of techniques that a lot of it is flexibility based, so there you can come off of that. If you're a short fire plug, well, I know guys like that. I would train you like this, so that's a good thing. I can't tell you how many times back in the day when I had a grappling team, we would go to tournaments and I would know the head instructor. So I'd be like, okay, all his guys are going to do this because that's what he does. And I would be right. And I just kept thinking, he's training, as great as he is, he's training them all one body type. Whereas my kids, they were all different. They were completely different. And you didn't know what you were going to get. You couldn't really, other than all my kids' new leg locks, they were all different. Some bottom players, some wrestling based, some everything. I mean, you name it, flexible, unflexible, fast, explosive, you name it. And that made it hard for teams to game plan against,
That's really cool. Well, I think that I've said this before on the show that it really is the mark of a good, effective instructor. If you're mindful of the fact that not everyone you teach is going to be built like you and have the same personality type as you and the same preferences as you, and so I think it's great that you're highlighting this because it really is important for people who are aspiring to be coaches or who currently are coaches to hear. Like I said, you don't want to create a bunch of mini me's, especially if they don't have the optimal attributes to mimic you. And I think what you said there is you like having that as a good home base and a good starting point is when someone's trying to figure out what their game is. It's like, okay, well, let's figure out what are some athletes out there that have the same build as you and what are they doing? Let's take a look at maybe what kind of things could apply to you and what styles of grappling could apply to your body type. And I think that's really valuable knowledge, man. It's very, very good insight.